Welcome to another episode of Raising OKC Kids, Conversations with MetroFamily in Oklahoma City. I'm Kirsten Holder, and today we're talking with the MetroFamily team, which includes editor Erin Page, assistant editor Lindsay Kumo, and director of events Marissa Ragland about working mom life. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
Hey, guys.
Hello, everyone.
So where do we even begin with the challenges we are all facing right now as working moms? I know a lot of our listeners are in that boat, as we are as well. So as if the pandemic and school from home wasn't enough, we've now battled power outages, ice storms, snowstorms, basically everything that Mother Nature could have thrown at us, not to mention the election, the civil divide our country is in the midst of reconciliation. I hate to start this chat out listing off all the things that went wrong this year, but I do so to really name out some of the things that our families are carrying right now. This is a heavy year, and it has been for some time. This time in our lives has been, like I said, in a word, heavy. Let's start out our introductions, letting our listeners know who you are individually, where you're at in your life, what age your kiddos are, what your school from home / work from home situation looks like, just to give us a point of view on where you're coming from right now. So Erin, let's go ahead and start with you.
Sure. I'm Erin Page, managing editor for MetroFamily, and my husband Jordan and I have 3 kids. Like so many of you, I have been working from home for the last year, along with our whole MetroFamily team. Jordan has worked from home off and on. Our oldest 2 kids have been on an A-B schedule for most of the year, which really means that I have been taking first grade and third grade again. And I really hope that I did better the first time around. Thankfully, my youngest is in pre-K, and he has been able to go to school, barring snowstorms, ice storms, power outages, every day with his little mask on like a champ. So, I mean, we're just all here. And I've worked from home for a long time, but never with everyone else also here. I think when this pandemic first hit, it was so hard on parents because we were just thrown into this bizarre new way of life. And I think I expected for my family that the longer it went on, the more we would adapt and become accustomed to it. And that is not what is happening. Pandemic fatigue is hard. It is real. I think at this point, it's so hard for me to feel like I'm doing anything well in my career as a mom, as a wife, as a daughter, as a community advocate. The silver lining for me in all of that has been truly all of you, our whole parent community at MetroFamily, who have provided some genuine opportunities to connect and support each other, even though we can't be together in person.
Thank you for that. I think we're all feeling everything you were listing out right then. I was getting a little misty-eyed as you were talking because of the relatability. Lindsay, how are you doing?
Oh gosh, I totally relate to what Erin is saying. I've worked from home for several years now, but having everyone home with me, man, she's right. I thought it would get easier. I thought we would get the hang of it. But man, it has just been the more that's been thrown at us with this or that, or who knows what next crisis. I just feel like every day is overwhelming in a new way. And yeah, it's just been a challenge to kind of navigate all that we've had to deal with this last year. I have 3 boys, 2 of which started junior high and one's in elementary. We started the year all virtual at home. So I was working in 3rd grade and muddling through 7th grade. That was really difficult. We transitioned to in-person this last semester, and that has came with a whole lot of emotion and challenges. And, even that has came with some quarantines and some weather. And so that's been a mixed bag of virtual learning and in-person learning. And, all the while just trying to find some bit of normal in all of these changes is just been a challenge. My husband's also working from home with me. That was new. He started that early on in the pandemic, and I don't see that ending anytime soon. So we're kind of work buddies, finding our little corner in the house here. That's been interesting to navigate a new phase in our relationship together. So it's been good. On some hands, I'm not here all by myself all day, but on the other hand, I'm not here all by myself all day. So I don't know. I saw a meme go across the other day about, I believe Aaron shared it about, I'm ready for some precedented times, and man, can I get that as my vacation plans for this summer? That's what I'd like to book.
I agree 100%. Marissa, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Just trying to keep our head above water, I would say, is sort of been the constant treading. My husband and Nathan and I have a 6-month-old little boy, and from laboring to bring him here with a mask on to figuring out the juggle of, not pursuing daycare because of the current situation. So we do a lot of juggling. I'm surrounded by baby toys right now, even as we're recording this. I'm in this one space that doesn't have it in the window. And it's just been a juggle, but we have thankfully been able to see, in-laws, my parents, to be able to help us in an experience outside of these walls. I just ventured out in the snow yesterday and did some snow angels to be able to cope with new motherhood in a pandemic. So the juggle is truly real. So.
No one's cup is 100% full right now, especially if you're a working mom, if you're just a parent in general. I think we're all having challenges we're dealing with right now. Like Marissa, I had to really quickly clean up baby toys before we started the Zoom because I have a toddler at home with me who his energy is busting out the walls of our home. So when the weather was nice, it was more manageable. Now that the weather is bad, that's hard. I've seen so many of our readers and our listeners share that it's like the hourly roller coaster of COVID right now. It's not, day to day. It's like hour to hour. How are you doing? How are you feeling? And that is what hits home for me in my household right now. Because like Marissa, I don't have a full-time childcare situation, and what childcare I do have has been impacted week to week due to COVID. And I think a lot of parents that listen and read our magazine are likely in that boat. We're all trying to hodgepodge a situation that works for us. And the stress of that, I think, can only not help, but bleed into other areas of our life, including our work. And that's really hard. And this is just a hard situation that we're all in right now. Speaking of memes that Lindsay brought up, Erin, you are the meme-tastic mastermind behind MetroFamily social media channels. You shared that one about we need precedented times right now, please. What are we hearing from other parents as far as sharing their feelings, their needs, their challenges, on and on?
So that is my favorite meme of the entire pandemic. I could really go for some precedented times right about now. I think that just sums up how we're all feeling. In a word, parents are overwhelmed. We need support. We need to give and receive grace. We need encouragement and affirmation that we're not in this alone and that we're doing the best we can. So as the four of us are all feeling that on a daily basis, I think we have tried to do our best to provide that same sense of camaraderie and realness to our parent community as well. I know I have needed to be reminded often of why it's important to plan fun things to do right now, because in my household, sometimes that is the only way to give our mental health a boost during the week or on the weekend. And that's why I'm always really thankful for Lindsay's content, especially because she's always coming up with new ideas for ways to have safe, fun, to be socially distant, to get outdoors and enjoy the city, or to have fun at home. And sometimes we just need that little bit of inspiration from somebody else's creative mind to give us some ideas of ways that we can have fun as a family, and that it is so important for our mental health to do that. So on the flip side, obviously this year has been hard. We're all overwhelmed. We're looking to those precedented times, crossing our fingers that that's going to come back. But the other side to all of this that I've been hearing from so many in our parent community is people are more willing to have hard conversations right now, to recognize and talk about needed or much overdue change, and then to actually get involved in the community to confront issues, whether it's social justice, systemic racism, equity in schools, better supports for our teachers, goodness knows they deserve it, mental health support, sustainability, homelessness, on and on. And it's been really beautiful for me to see that happening and have the opportunity to engage in a lot of those conversations. And it's given me a chance to really look forward with some hope.
Thank you for sharing that. That is the silver lining to come out of this pandemic, if there is one. We've had a lot of time to think about what social change needs to look like, what changes we need in our lives as parents, responsible for our work, our coworkers, but also our families. Things need to shift, and hopefully we're coming to the other side of some of those issues. So for listeners of this podcast who have heard my interviews before, you know I can hardly continue on without knowing someone's Enneagram number. For those of you that are unfamiliar with the Enneagram, it's just a method of assessing personality and approach similar to that of Myers-Briggs and many other personality quizzes that are out there. In the Enneagram, there are 9 types, and each of those types describe typical ways in which you might approach challenges, the why behind the action, if you will. So I would love to know Enneagram numbers for each of you, including how you think those numbers affect or influence your parenting. Marissa, you and I are the newbie parents, so I'd love to start with you for this question.
Sure. So I am a number 3, or the achiever. And I even feel that that number has shifted since becoming a mom. And that has impacted my parenting style in a way in which, I'm able to, I'm very goal oriented, very competitive. And so some of the things that I've been having to work on truly is knowing when to ask my husband for help, because I like to prove and see that I can do it all. I can juggle literally holding the baby on my hip and do 2 loads of laundry and have the dishes done. So I like to set up little competitions for myself, especially during this pandemic, to see what I can get done before noon, see what I can do. And so that competitive nature comes into my parenting style in terms of the mom, I guess, that can do it all and try to do it all. But it ultimately, it affects and it comes to my demise, and if I don't ask for help. So yeah, I would say that's how it affects me.
I think no matter what your number is, that is a relatable attitude to have. You start out the day with a full cup of coffee and you're like, I can take on the world. And then by noon, you're like, I can't do anything. At least that's how my brain's working.
Yeah.
I'm a 5, which means I'm the thinker. I'm kind of analyzing everything. So I can kind of relate to what you're saying. I'm trying to make lists and goals, and productivity is a key success metric for how I define my life. And sometimes when you're with kids and when you're trying to get a lot done all at the same time, that goes out the window. That doesn't mean you're an unsuccessful parent. So how do you kind of reconcile that in your mind? I am on the same page with you, Marissa. You're speaking my language right now, even though we're not the same number. Lindsay, how about you?
So I retook the test just to see. It's been a little bit since I had taken one, so I wanted to see if anything had changed. It hadn't really changed for me. I'm a 2, closely followed by, I think it's a 9. So that makes me a giver and a peacemaker, which is not really a shocker considering I'm a middle child. So it didn't surprise me much with that, but kind of where that plays a part in my parenting, those words definitely seem like, oh, that makes her perfect for motherhood. But when it comes to giving, especially, I can give until I resent. And then I get mad and no one knows why, and I'm just like, well, haven't you seen all of this? Well, they're just so used to it. That's just what I do. Well, And I don't even realize that's what I've done until, again, I'm mad about the situation. And then with the peacekeeper, are you kidding me? Peacekeeper with 3 kids? I don't think I really need to explain why that is an unachievable goal. So I think, again, I kind of set myself up for these unattainable goals sometimes in my head, and what I want to surround myself with. And so it's, again, I find myself picturing something that's just not possible in the real world. So I kind of have to check myself and my expectations for others because that's certainly not their goals in life is to be calm and peaceful along with what I want all the time. So those are important ways that I have to keep in mind that those things don't always work in my favor.
Well, and you brought up 2 good points, birth order roles, in addition to some of these approaches. And I think that is, I mean, that is something we have to constantly keep in check. I'm the oldest of 4 kids, actually 7 kids after my parents got divorced. And I'm the caretaker. And so I'm just trying to take care of everything, trying to do everything. It's not realistic. The other thing you brought up, and speaking of being unrealistic, is expectations. And I think that's something we all are, as parents, are very hard on ourselves about. And that's something we do need to monitor, especially when we're overloaded, when we're carrying way more than we're used to. Erin, how about you?
So it usually surprises no one who knows me well that I'm an Enneagram 1, otherwise known as the reformer or the perfectionist. But I also have a wing 2, the helper. So like Lindsay, I relate to a lot of that as well. As a 1, I tend to have really high expectations, typically unrealistic, of myself. And then in times of stress, that absolutely extends to my kids and my family for sure. I am very task oriented. I can be inflexible, and I'm often really high stress, which is exacerbated in times of pandemic. Who knew?
Yeah.
So as a mom, it's been really important for me to give myself and my kids a lot of grace. That does not come naturally to me at all. For myself, it's way easier with friends and family. To give my kids a lot of affirmation, and thankfully for that comes naturally thanks to my 2 wing, and allow us all the space to make mistakes or to be late or to not look put together all the time. And since I'm a 1 and tend to focus on being a perfectionist, I made myself think through the positive things about being a 1 wing 2, which mean I'm really passionate. I'm good at instilling responsibility and empathy in my kids. I'm good at creating structure and boundaries for them, giving them positive reinforcement, and advocating for people and issues. And as I've done some research into the Enneagram, again, I'm a 1, that doesn't surprise anyone. And 1s really love vacation because that can be the only time we feel we can relax and let go, when we are physically distanced from all of our responsibilities. And that is so true of me. My kids would tell you I'm an epic vacation planner, whether we're going on a trip somewhere or I'm just planning something fun to do around Oklahoma City. So there you have it.
I love that you brought up the positive sides of your numbers. And for those of you who are regular listeners, I know a lot of that affirmation talk came from Stacy Johnson in your talk with her, where she made you do some affirmations on air. And those are so important for parents to be doing right now. We don't have many people to fill up our own cups right now. We need to do it ourselves. We already were in that position. And I think the physical distance that the pandemic has created between us has made that even harder. We're not able to see our girlfriends that we can, usually sit around and we fill each other's cups for. That's just not attainable right now. And so having those affirmations, I think, are really important. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, with 2 teenagers in my household, affirmations are getting slim from my children. So I need to layer that into my self-care.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think kids at any stage, they have their pros and cons, but I can't imagine what you're going through with 3 teenagers in your house right now. So you'd like to think that because we're all home more, we don't have as much going on, not as many places to be, that we would have more time for those self-care moments that Lindsay was just mentioning. But unfortunately, that's just not true. I mean, as Marissa talked about, our to-do lists seem longer than ever. Our silver linings are also very valid, as is our stress and our feelings of insanity at times. So I'd like to talk about some of the techniques that we all use to implement to bring ourselves back to center and why those things are important. Erin just shared about affirmations. Lindsay, I'd love to hear from you and what you think.
I wish I was better at this, but I should be really honest. This is an area I need to work on and work on a lot better. Because like you said, when you look back at that number, I'm a giver. So looking at myself is just not fun. I'd much rather focus on others. But, if I feel overwhelmed, especially if I have a busy schedule, whatever, just making out a to-do list, just something about seeing it, and it just seems more tangible when it's kind of laid out there in a plan for me. So that's kind of like my first step. If I am stressed and I have anxiety, I like to just kind of label out what I need to do. So, that doesn't necessarily seem like the most glamorous of self-care, but it certainly centers me a lot with what I need to accomplish, and it just kind of gives me a way to grab a hold of my next steps. And then if things are more emotional that I'm dealing with, personal connection is also another piece that centers me. So, that has been a little harder to do right now. And so a lot of my work affords me the opportunity to find new ways to do that. So some of this is self-benefiting in my job, but, planning those carefree days are just really important for me. We might cook a new meal together, something different, or gosh, get out and just play together. Those are really important times for me. I'm not one to just have alone time. That doesn't really help me. That usually makes me dwell on all the things I don't do well. So for me, those are my center times that kind of refresh me. So, but hopefully as spring gets here, I'll be able to find more opportunities to do that.
I'm with you on that list making. I don't know if you do this, but sometimes I make out lists just so I can see all the things I've done. Like, okay, I had a full glass of water before 8 o'clock. Check, and then I can feel a little bit better about my accomplishments in air quotes for today. Erin, how about you?
So, like Lindsay, probably like most moms, it feels very against my nature to do things for myself. And I promised myself that I would make this more of a priority in my life this year, even just in small ways, whether making time for self-care or just thinking about what makes me happy and then doing it. I deal with anxiety, as do my kids. So I've been really thankful, especially during the last year, for practices learned from our own therapists or from mental health professionals that we work with at MetroFamily, like Simi John. We have been incorporating a lot of grounding techniques in our home when we feel out of control. We talk through and about hard emotions constantly. My kids would probably tell you too often. Like we discussed, we use affirmations for ourselves and for each other. I love the practice of when my kids are fighting, making them say each other's affirmations or positive things about each other in the midst of that. But it's helpful for me too to remember, instead of dwelling on the negative, to remember my positive qualities. We've been intentionally trying to celebrate more of the small moments, like passing a sight words test or getting a magazine to press. I like to have some alone time, which I'm not getting very much of right now. So I try to run or exercise every morning just to have that time to myself before everybody needs me. I love to cook, and I try to take time every day to read. And then I think maybe the most important thing for me is I have been just trying to acknowledge and normalize for me and for my household that it's okay to have those days where I don't feel like doing anything, when I'm not productive, when I'm crying a lot, when I yell at my kids about something ridiculous. We have been really focusing on apologizing even more during this pandemic in our household, and that it's okay for everybody to get a fresh start the next day. And my husband would love to tell you that he and my kids have learned that when I am high stress, high anxiety, they just force me to stop and hug, which is that physical touch and that affirmation, I think, can be really important. And sometimes we forget that.
I love that you're creating a network of support in your own home, because those skill sets are going to be something that your kids take on forever and ever. It sounds like you and your husband keep each other accountable, your kids keep you accountable, and then you're making them accountable for each other. And that is going to be something that will only be just such a beautiful legacy to pass on, such a gift to pass on as they grow. I just love that. And I'm going to steal that as my little guy gets a little older. Marissa, how about you?
Yeah, that's so sweet, Erin. Oh man, I've been focusing and have a list as well of, a checklist of self-care, movement, and hydration every day. There's little 8 boxes on hydration to see how far I can get. Do I get to 8? No, but I try. And self-care, even in being fortunate to work part-time, I've found that if I pull up on my 2 monitors, one of them is of the OKC Zoo's Red Panda live cam. And I am in love with live cams right now to be able to just see that soothing video. So whether that's from, hippos to jellyfish, I am engaged in a brief moment and then back to work. And so just kind of interpreting self-care for myself, especially since becoming a new mom, a first-time mom, just differently, and making sure that I'm checking those boxes every day and investing in myself as well. And something that I've really been leaning into since doing a 4-week program with Sweet Yield company was all about doing yoga and being mindful every day. And so whether that's stretching in front of my son Quinn for 15 minutes and him just laughing at me or not sure what I'm doing on the ground, doing upward dog or whatever, I'm getting that time for me and I'm stretching it out. I'm checking that movement box. So
I love all those things. Well, and don't we know too that stress manifests physically? I do. I mean, I will wake up in the night sore like I've run a marathon and I'm not a runner. And so doing that yoga, addressing some of those meditation techniques through movement, I think is good for just body, mind, spirit. And I'm with you, Marissa. I'll do them at my house to the point where one of my babysitters has said, do you do yoga a lot in your house? Because your son is doing downward dog a lot. And I don't mind that at all. I'm going to take it. I'm going to hope he keeps up with downward dog. So because we've talked about, we know, and we can relate to the idea that parents need a little love, a little extra of everything, support, permission to take time for themselves, to take care of themselves through some of the techniques that we've discussed right now. MetroFamily felt very strongly about being part of that solution. We've recently launched a membership and subscription program that you might have seen called our MetroFamily Insiders. Insiders not only receive each magazine to their doorstep, they also receive exclusive discounts to events that we host annually. And then we've recently created programming specifically for them because we all need it also. Our first virtual Insiders event content will be released March 26th at 7 p.m. and can be watched anytime on demand for our insiders and those who register. The event is called Refuel, Refresh, and Renew because we all need to do just that. We will be hearing from several women on recentering ourselves, including an Enneagram personality pattern review with Marcy McConnel of the Reclaimed Soul. She is a vibrant personality. If you're not familiar with her, you're going to love her. Goal setting and expectations with Simi John, again, magnetic. Everything she says on social media or through her live videos, I'm just hanging on every word, and I know you will be too. And then light meditation and yoga from our pals at This Land Yoga in Oklahoma City. Our team is so excited about this. We know our readers and listeners will be too. And then I'd love to turn it over to 3 of you. Each of our team members here are going to talk a little bit about our speakers that are going to be there for our Insiders event. Erin, would you go ahead and introduce Simi John?
Absolutely. So Simi John is a MetroFamily contributor. She's a mom, an author, a speaker around the Metro, and a physical therapist for her day job. And she is an encourager in every sense of the word. Like Kirsten mentioned, if you follow her on social media, you know she is dedicated to affirming and uplifting moms and women, whether it's encouraging women to live out their purpose with their own unique talents right where they are, or sharing her own lived experiences of moving to America from India as a child and how that still impacts her today. One of my very favorite articles that Simi has written for us was called Move Over Mom Guilt. And she gave us tips on resetting when that unnecessary guilt creeps in and threatens to immobilize us. So at our event, Simi is going to help us reset with a quick goal setting exercise. She's going to talk about contentment, burnout, we could all use that talk, and finding purpose. And then she's also providing a 5-day guide to contentment for every participant, which I know I'm really excited about diving into.
We all need that right now. Lindsay, would you go ahead and introduce Marcy?
Sure. Marcy with the Reclaim Soul, she's going to provide us with a brief overview of the Enneagram program, kind of break down what all of those mean, the common terms, and kind of grabbing hold of some of the resourcefulness of each of those types, and help us shed some of the negativity, kind of as we all kind of tended to focus on the negative parts, help us kind of embrace those strong benefits and positivities of each of those types. And really embrace kind of who those are and what those mean for us. It isn't a requirement, but we recommend that you take a free Enneagram test prior to tuning in. There's a free test we recommend at yourenneagramcoach.com. We'll have that linked here on the video so you can get easy access to that. So it's a fun one, and will really help you kind of take a look at some of your strengths.
Great. And then Jillian Woods with This Land Yoga will be joining us for the Insider event. And, just hearing Jillian Woods and her practice, she's very professional and so very soothing. The yoga class specifically is designed to help you reset and tap into your higher self. And so with Jillian's help, we'll be using breathing techniques, gentle yoga postures, and mantras to connect the mind, body, spirit, and breath. So personally, very excited about that component to the Insider event as well.
Thank you guys so much. I am so excited about these speakers. I selfishly am just so glad I got to connect with you three and feel validated in some of the things I'm going through right now. And I know so many of our listeners can relate and agree too. We've seen that on social media. We've seen that in our articles coming out that people have really been sharing all around. So we hope you all will join us at this Refuel, Refresh, and Renew event as well. You do not have to be an insider to be involved. It is free for insiders though. And to be an insider, it's just $25 a year. You get all these perks. However, if you just like to come for this event, we are selling general admission tickets for just $10. So you can learn more about that at metrofamilymagazine.com/insider-events. Lindsay, would you mind giving our listeners a few places to look for additional self-care content as well?
Absolutely. Family mental health has been an important focus for us at Metro Family, and we're in the midst of a second series on that very important topic. We have looked at a variety of topics to support parents in this area. So you can find both of those series at metrofamilymagazine.com/mental health. We include Simi's article that Aaron spoke about, talking about managing stress, self-care in this pandemic, and so much more. So there's a lot of great resources all in that one page. So it should be a great spot for moms and dads and grandparents to reach out and find the support they need.
Thank you three again for taking the time with us today. Thank you for all that listened, and join us next time on Raising OKC Kids.